Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic comic book creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our returning guest, Trevor Mueller. We're here to break down Los Ojos and everything in between. And sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. This interview is just too hot, and Spectrum knew that I would have to reset my modem and router before I had strong enough signal. So Trevor, thank you for staying with me throughout the process. Let's get this damn interview done already.
and you're welcome for breaking your internet.
So Trevor, last time we had you on, we were talking about a phenomenal webcomic. What's been up since you've last been here?
Yeah, so the webtoons are still going on. They're in their final seasons. They're both going to conclude this year. So Nexus Point, cyberpunk action story about hackers fighting bounty hunters. Repossessed, kind of a comedy, workplace comedy, supernatural horror thing about college kids working in a pawn shop that sells demonically possessed items. Mm-hmm. What we didn't talk a lot about last time is the fact that I also do print comics. And I've been doing print comics for going on 20 years, usually either in the indie and self-publishing scene or converting my web comics over into books. And Los Ojos is a project that I've been working on for a number of years. The first issue of it was originally a one-and-done story that Francisco and I had come out from an indie publisher that doesn't exist anymore. When they closed down, they gave us the rights back. I came up with an idea for a sequel, and we decided to turn it into a series. And so what we have here on Zoop is the first collection of books. It's 132 full-color pages, the first, I think, 5 chapters of Los Ojos. Which is an action horror story about a contract killer. When he looks people in the eyes, or Los Ojos, he doesn't see them as human, he sees them as angels or demons.
That's a really interesting concept. I mean, there's a game that I used to play on the GameCube, and what was it? I'm going to think about it, and it's like the Hunter Reckoning or something, where you're like a bounty hunter-esque type of demon hunter, and it kind of gives me that vibes, maybe with a little bit of Constantine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch that we came up for it was John Wick meets John Constantine. It's got kind of that visceral act and almost ballet of carnage that you get out of a John Wick movie. But instead of fighting mob bosses, he's fighting monsters. So that was really what we were trying to go for with the story.
And I had a chance to read, I would say, a pretty decent chunk of Volume 1. And I'm here for the ride. I love our protagonist. I love just the layers you add to this and the conflict. You know, not every demon is going to be a demon, right? Like, demons can change, angels can change. And I love how you explore that concept as well. Where did the creation of this come from?
Yeah, it all stemmed from a question that I think children kind of ask themselves. If we were to switch bodies, would green still be the same color? Right? And it's just taking that a step further of, would I see the world the same way if I were to be in your body? And I always ask this question around superheroes or people with abilities or anything. How do you monetize that? Right? Like, how would you make a living if you had an ability where you saw demons walking around everyday life? And for me, this story became interesting. He becomes a hitman, right? Like, he's on an assassination crusade to try to rid the world of evil. And in that first chapter that you're reading there, he discovers that what he's seeing, this binary view of the world of good and evil, may not be true. And I thought that kind of created a fun, almost unreliable narrator setup that we could go with the story and explore in depth with the character of Andres.
Perception is really a finicky thing, right? Like, we see Andres kind of at odds with himself with what he does as a hitman, because it's not necessarily that he's, killing humans per se, but he does take joy in dishing out justice to the scumbags. And I love how we see that explored early on, and how, all these people are scumbags, but some are more than scumbags. And I just love how, you were able to kind of set up that environment. And, the first place we go to is just a phenomenal bar, nightclub-esque area. And it was just gorgeous. These interiors are so pretty. Who's the creative team that you're working with on this project?
Yeah, so Francisco Iaquinta is my artist, and he has been doing the art throughout the entire series. The original run, the original issue, which is that first chapter, and then the rest of it. And there was maybe a 7-year gap in between there where his art style changed. And so we decided to take that original black and white story and put it in color. And so he had introduced me to Marco Pagnotta. Both Francisco and Marco are Italian. And so Marco was making all of Francisco's art look gorgeous and really pop on the screen. I really liked the brightness of the colors he was putting in. I didn't see a lot of that in horror comics. A lot of comics within the horror genre tend to be very muted in terms of colors. So to see the brightness that he was kind of throwing in there, I thought was really, really unique. And then Taylor Esposito brings it home with gorgeous letters. I mean, he's been such a phenomenal partner to have with on this, and has really brought a unique approach to the lettering and the fact that we're juggling multiple narrators and multiple points of view within this story. So I thought he did a fantastic job of that, and it's been a tremendous team to work with.
Yeah, Taylor really feels like the standard for lettering anymore. Like anytime I'm talking to a creator, 9 times out of 10, they've done lettering or they've been a part of the process. And it's always phenomenal hearing their name brought up whenever we chat. I really am interested in hearing how that scripting process looked like when you're balancing these different point of views. Was that a challenge for you at any point, or did you feel like it kind of came natural?
You know, it wasn't too hard. I wanted to make sure that it didn't come off as confusing to the reader at the end, because I knew that there was going to be issues with multiple narrators or a third person narrator and then Andres narrating in there. In the original issue, it was just Andres narrating. And we kept that in this collection. And then I thought it was important, though, to start to pepper in some of those additional narrators, because that starts to point out some of the unreliable narrator tropes that we were throwing in with Andres, and starting to question his perception. Is it reality or am I crazy? And so for me, it was how much of this to put in and how much of this to take out within any given issue. Because I didn't want to confuse readers and have them have multiple narrators being juggled within a single issue. And they do that in mainstream, like Big Two comics, like Justice League does that all the time, but they've got like symbols or things to identify that this is Batman narrating or this is Wonder Woman narrating. We don't have that. So I tried to keep it to 2 or less within each issue, just to make sure that we didn't confuse anyone as to what was going on, but simultaneously gave those additional perspectives into what was happening, what we're seeing, and what other people may be seeing that Andres is not seeing.
So, I mean, what was it like diving into this genre, like coming from, your other works and books that you published? Like, how did it feel to kind of get a chance to dive into the horror genre?
Horror was fun. I've done short stories with it before, and again, we did Los Ojos as a single issue 25 pager. It helps that I have action in there, because that's very easy for me to write and something that I naturally gravitate towards. And then I wanted to inject a little bit of humor in there, because most of my stories I like to have a little bit of brevity. And that was the hard piece to pepper in, because I was like, how serious do I want this book to be? How intense does this moment need to stay? And if I include a joke in here or a visual gag or something, does that take away from the moment? So those were decisions that had to be thought through a little bit more. And then other stories that I think I've written, like Repossessed, for example, there's no question. If there's a gag I can put in, I just stick it in. With this one, because the tone is a little bit more mature and a little bit more nuanced, I had to really ask myself, what does this add to the story? Does this take away from the scene? Do I need this?
And I love that explanation as well, because humor and horror often have the same build-up, the same breadcrumbs you lay, and the same end result, and all it falls on is that timing and how you land it. And I think it's so much fun that you had to kind of balance if you wanted this to be more humorous horror or more serious. I mean, did you find that challenging? To pull away when you normally would try to pack jokes into other works?
It was flexing a new muscle for me, because again, I've done it for short durations. I wrote a story that is available as an add-on for the Los Ojos Zoop campaign called The Fan, but The Fan is only like 8 to 10 pages. And so telling that complete story within that area was very, very easy, and there weren't a lot of jokes that I necessarily needed to inject in there. Versus with Los Ojos, we're trying to tell a much larger story. This is 132 pages. We've got ideas for a sequel that we're already working on. Depending on how well the campaign does, we could do a third one, and that would potentially finish it off, or we'll finish it off in the second one. We'll see. But the idea is I've got more breathing room here. So do I include a little bit more humor? Do I want to try to have some moments that otherwise would not have fit into a shorter horror story? How psychological do I want this to be versus like body horror versus other types of horror? And we do a little bit of a balance of all of those things, I think, throughout the series, not necessarily just within volume 1, but throughout the accompaniment of everything that we want to do with Los Ojos.
So we're taking a look at Los Ojos by Trevor here on Zoop. How do you feel about your campaign so far? Is this the first time that you've done anything with Zoop, or?
First time doing Zoop. My previous crowdfunding efforts have all been on Kickstarter, but that was for a young readers series, Albert the Alien. And granted, we got nominated for 2 Harvey Awards for Albert. But I didn't know how well that audience was going to transfer over for this one. The last time I did a crowdfunding campaign too was in like 2018. So the crowdfunding landscape has changed a lot since then. I also have kids now, and so the ability to invest as much time that is needed into a crowdfunding campaign is less for me. And then obviously like fulfillment and stuff like that is also a bit of a chore. So when I was asking around who people recommended going to from a crowdfunding site, multiple people that I know were recommending Zoop. Because Zoop offers services that allow me, the creator, to kind of focus on telling the story and do interviews like these versus needing to go out and get print quotes from multiple printers and figure out how we're going to do shipping and distribution and all those fun logistical things that you don't think about when you think independent comic book creator. So Zoop has been fantastic to work with. They've been phenomenal partners. It looks like they just hit the live button, so we've already got 7 supporters in already, which is fantastic. And you're also seeing why we delayed, because we were originally going to go live yesterday, but we delayed our launch because Ben Templesmith gave us an exclusive cover. So people who back it on Zoop will get the Ben Templesmith cover. People who do not back it on Zoop, that cover will not be available. We are going to print additional copies, but it's going to have the Francisco cover.
I love that so much, and it's so cool you were able to get an exclusive cover just for Zoop itself. Let's go ahead, take a look at some of these rewards and see what all the hype is about. So we have a digital PDF coming in at $16, the hardcover early bird at $32. We have a signed hardcover early bird at $42, and then the retail bundle, all copies signed, at $53. And then, of course, if you want to, leave a tip right here. Even $1 helps Trevor in his journeys on creating books. So awesome add-ons as well. We have digital sketches from the artist coming in at $50, a digital drawing at $100, and then a digital comic, The Fan, and then consumer at $5 a pop. You can get that Harvey nominated book, Albert the Alien, at $20, and volume 2 of that at $20 as well. And a volume 3 and 4. Okay, I didn't know the series was that big, Trevor. Not bad, not bad.
That's the whole series. The whole series is four trades. It's over 800 pages between all.
Wow. And then we have Demon City at $5, Witches of Ewick Boulevard at $5 as well. And last but not least, Beyond the Pillars 1 at $5. So awesome stuff there. Let's check out some of these preview pages too. This cover is just gorgeous. What was your reaction when you first got this?
You know, Ben and I had been going back and forth on text message, and he sent me through the roughs, and it was kind of hard to see what his vision was, but I was like, yeah, like, let's make sure we're doing something cool with the eyes. Once he sent through the final, I was like, holy shit, this is gorgeous.
So, I mean, we kind of touched base a little bit about what this is about and what the first couple pages are going to entail a little bit without spoiling. But this is a big book. What else can readers expect from it?
Yeah, this book is juggling a couple of different storylines. You've got Andres and his battle with monsters, Andres and his battle with himself and his own perceptions, and the fact that he has to take on kind of the surrogate father role for a woman and her son that he rescues in the very first issue. Simultaneously, he's being hunted by the FBI. So the FBI are hot on his trail, trying to follow this serial killer that may or may not exist. They call him the Boogeyman. And so he's got all these multiple things to kind of contend with as he is doing this adventure and going on this. And he's trying to juggle his personal life too, right? He's trying to discover, is there more to life than just hunting monsters? And so the woman that he rescues, Sophie, she doesn't have a place to live at the end of the first issue, so she kind of becomes roommates with him, and he's kind of co-helping raise her son, and the two of them might be developing some feelings for each other.
Yeah, I was right there catching a little bit of the vibe. I'm like, okay, all right. I see a love story when, I know a love story when I see one. This one just so happens to have demons involved in it, and that makes it that much more spicier. So guys, if you're watching, right here is the link to back today. If you're unable to back, put this on Facebook or Twitter. Word of mouth costs you absolutely nothing, and it's free to do. So Trevor, you've been on the show before. You know the drill. For anyone looking to try to jump into a new genre, maybe they're kind of fixated on what works best for them, but they have an idea that might work pretty well too. What would be your biggest piece of advice to help them kind of just get into that mindset to get it created?
Well, if you're trying to create your own comics, I always recommend start with something short. And there are 3 reasons why I like to start with something short. So the first reason is that you are more likely to finish that story. If you're telling a longer story, it's very easy to go back to your first 10 pages and be like, I can do that better now, because you've done it and you've grown and you have gotten better. And ignoring that impulse, I think, helps people on a forward projection. 2, if you are like me, just a writer, it's easier to find an artist to work with that will work on a shorter project with you. And that also allows you to test the waters a little bit to see if you like working together, if you are a compatible creative couple, if you will, in order to make longer books together down the road. The third one is that because you have a finished product, it's easier and cheaper to get it printed. And with that printed thing, you can go to your local library, you can go to your local comic book shop, you can put it on consignment, you can sell the thing, and like me, you can hand it to editors when you meet them and say, here's an example of what I do. Can we talk? Can I pitch? Can we work together? So short stories are always how I recommend for people just starting out. They're also harder to write. So it's honestly a little bit more of a challenge to do that shorter story than it is to tell your 1,000-page magnum opus that's noodling around in your head.
And writing like a 7-page, 8-page script, you're able to tell a story in that many pages. You're able to tell a story across the 1,000. Like I feel like that's the best exercise, being able to complete your stories, provides you the footing and the fuel to continue to write those longer ones. So awesome work there. Speaking of that, though, you have some crazy upcoming stuff that you're working on. Anything you could tell us about?
So I actually have previews you saw at the end of the add-on section of that Zoop campaign. First issues of new series that I have coming out. So Demon City is another kind of mature readers supernatural crime noir story. It's about the last homicide that will ever happen because it's a post-apocalyptic setting. Demons from hell now live among us, and the first demon detective has just caught his first case, which is that somebody has murdered Death, and now no one else can die.
Trevor, are you a demon? There's a lot of demon writing going on recently. Is there something you need to tell us?
I think I've watched too much of the same thing while I was writing both of these simultaneously. But in a completely different direction, right? Then we've also got The Witches of Eastwick Boulevard. And The Witches of Eastwick Boulevard is going to be a 5-issue series. It's an urban fantasy story, so think Harry Potter without the school. And it's about 2 high school sisters that discover they have magical powers and decide to use those abilities to save their town from things that go bump in the night. But unfortunately, their town is Danvers, Massachusetts, which had to change its name in the 1700s from Salem Village.
Ooh.
So they're not heroes, they're witches.
Ooh.
So that one's really, really fun. And then Beyond the Pillars is an Indiana Jones-style adventure story about a dishonorably discharged soldier who sticks around after he's been kicked out of the military because he's discovered a secret war happening behind the scenes. So those are 3 new series that I have in the works. Some of them are, Demon City and Witches are done. We're just waiting to get the crowdfunding out for those. Might do it on Zoop, might do it on Kickstarter. Still determining what I want to do with those. But those are ready to come out. And then finishing up the webtoons. I've got both the webtoon series, Nexus Point and Repossessed, which are free to read. Just go to webtoon.com, type in either Nexus Point or Repossessed, and you've got over 50 episodes of both. And Repossessed updates every Tuesday. Outside of that, I've got a handful of projects that aren't announced just yet that I've been working on because I went freelance this year, so I'm just doing comics full-time. And so I've got 2 young readers' educational graphic novels that I'm working on right now. I've got a comic book adaptation of a movie that I helped make with a former Power Ranger actor.
Morphin time, baby. Let's go.
It's very different from Power Rangers, let me tell you. And then I've got a handful of other projects. I just wrote my first issue of my first high fantasy series.
Okay.
So, witches and mages and barbarians and monsters and all kinds of fun stuff in that. And that'll be a good one. That one's called For the Glory. So look for that one.
I love it, Trevor. I can't wait to see what else comes from you in the future. Everyone who's watching, his social media is going to be in the link below words today. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to follow him so you can follow his journey and see all these awesome projects come to life. Trevor, thank you so much for coming on the show, staying with me throughout our troubleshooting escapade and getting it sorted and getting it done. This was one hell of a time. Everyone watching, of course, you can hit that link and back this today. If you're unable to back, put it on Twitter and Facebook. Word of mouth costs you absolutely nothing. Hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.